The beginning began at the end.
Postmodernism was born out of the cynicism, paranoia, distrust, death, and fear, all part of the aftermath of World War II.
Our three pieces were from the postmodernism time period. Midnight's Children was written in 1981 by Salman Rushdie, who at the time was in London after being forced out of India because of his controversial statements about political leaders and religious groups.
On the surface, the novel is about the life of Salim Sinai, which parallels the deeper struggles of the rebirth of India.
By connecting the life of India with Salim's human life, we can comprehend the emotions that are unavoidable in the rebirth of a nation.
The book attempts to reach the post-World War II world to create empathy with the people and nation of India in a time when the world was distraught with fear for themselves but ignorant of the woes of India.
In his introduction, Rushdie writes, like all novels, Midnight's Children is a product of its moments of history, touched and shaped by its time in ways that even its author cannot wholly know. What Rushdie is saying in this quote is that the themes of the book reflect the concurrent events of this world.
His writing also attempts to criticize the political system and the social expectations of India, which demonstrates a loss of trust in society and their government.
The speaker of Midnight's Children is Salim Sinai, a character created by Salman Rushdie whose life parallels his own in many ways.
Rushdie describes Salim's tone as comically assertive, unrelentingly garrulous, and with, I hope, a growing pathos and its narrator's increasingly tragic overclaiming.
The School was written by Donald Barthelme in 1981. It is a story about death and how death relates to life. It was also written in the postmodern era after World War II. Many people died in the war and caused many people to wonder what the meaning of death is. The School attempts to answer this question.
The audience is a post-World War II world. The purpose of this short story is to criticize schools. It accuses schools of indoctrinating children with worldviews and points out that kids are often smarter than the teachers and that the entire idea of learning is not straightforward.
The story was written by Barthelme, who was a philosophy student and was deployed to Korea on the same day that their armistice was signed.
The speaker is a school teacher who teaches at a school where everything dies, from trees to class pets to students.
The teacher's tone is whimsical and erratic. The story flows as if he is naturally speaking, with no predetermined structure. While there is a clear ending, the author drifts from topic to topic.
School is cool when there are very few rules and none of the children drool and everyone sits on stools.
Wait was written by John Edgar Wideman and was published in 1999. The subject of this text is the narrator's mother, who he compares to a weightlifter, but the focus is mainly on the narrator's guilt about the weight his mother bears and his paranoia about her death.
Wideman was born in 1941 in the late years of World War II. He grew up in the postmodern literary period, and his works reflect this. Wideman grew up in Pittsburgh, where the story is set, and primarily writes about the struggles endured by black men in urban America. This text is no exception.
The audience is the post-World War II world, both those who can relate to the narrator's struggles and those who have never experienced a life like his.
The purpose of his writing is to articulate the guilt felt because of the hard work a mother does and the despair felt upon their death. The text has a feeling of paranoia, and the narrator tries to explain himself to his mother and how he feels about her.
The entire text comes from the narrator's point of view, and although there is speech from his mother, it's actually the author speaking and trying to be in his mother's head so that he can gain her approval, although he ends up just receiving criticism.
The tone is guilty, dejected, and remorseful. The speaker narrates from the depth of his soul and speaks truthfully about his issues he is concerned about. He is blunt about his feelings, but is forming thoughts as he narrates and realizes his feelings as he writes.
For example, after his weightlifting joke, he asks, "Was it the weightlifting joke? Maybe you didn't think it was funny."
This demonstrates that the narrator is changing his opinions on his jokes as he tells them, and responds to the reactions he gets or doesn't get.
After World War I, the Great War, the people of the world thought that they had seen the worst devastation possible of mankind. 16.5 million dead from over 20 different countries. The idea that any war could be even more deadly was an impossible concept.
Until, of course, World War II came along. With the invention and use of the atomic bomb, with the murder of millions of Jews in gas chambers and concentration camps, after years where it seemed, at times, likely that the world would be swallowed by evil, after approximately 72 million people lost their lives. People were shaken!
And you can see that in their writing. You can see the fascination with death in The School and Midnight's Children. You can see the fear of destruction in the form of Shiva in Midnight's Children, and you can see the fear of a loved one's death in Wait.
These are the emotions and fears that World War II brought to the forefront of everyone's mind.
In postmodernism, the structures are also odd and sometimes similar to postmodernism structures. The difference is that in modernism, before World War II, the poems and stories still have a center, some kind of clearly meaningful structure. Nicole is going to read us a quote from the poem.
Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack of all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity.
In this quote, we can see the transition from the modernism to postmodernism. The center is disappearing and being destroyed.
In postmodernism, there is no center. Everything acquires a degree of complexity, and things that were once clear and obvious become blurry and ambiguous. Nothing is assured anymore. Nothing can be guaranteed.
And this fundamental loss of certainty is another staple of postmodernism. Feature that is a staple of postmodernism. Everything that the author says, you question, even the most basic things. In Wait, he is talking to his mother. Oh, wait, no, she's actually dead. In Midnight's Children, he's telling the story of his childhood. Oh, wait, no, he lies about every single date or event he tells us about.
But there is more to the author's and narrator's deliberate deceptions than to just establish that nothing is assured. The authors use the lies and mistruths to tell a deeper truth.
The fundamental belief in the power of fiction. The fundamental belief that fiction can tell truths that can't be understood if told to you directly is inherent in all of these stories.
In normal fiction, the fact that it is fiction is disguised. The author goes through every pain to make it seem believable, whereas in postmodernism, the narrator will come out and actually talk directly to the reader and tell them that it isn't true, that this or that is made up, and that their lies tell more truths than their truths could.
Rushdie makes a metaphor between writing fiction and pickling fruit. He says, I reconcile myself to the inevitable distortions of the pickling process. To pickle is to give immortality. After all, fish, vegetables, fruit, hang embalmed in spice and vinegar. A certain alteration, a slight intensification of taste, is a small matter, surely? The art is to change the flavor in degree but not in kind, and above all, to give it shape and form, that is to say, meaning. So what Rushdie is saying in this is that writing fiction is the same thing as giving immortality. You have to intensify the taste, or exaggerate a little bit, and alter certain things, but that's not really important. The really important thing is to give it meaning.
And in Wait, the author says, being right or wrong about what happened is less important sometimes than finding a good way to tell it.
How involved the reader is another thing that makes postmodernism what it is. The narrator will break from the story and talk either directly to the reader or to another character who is in place of the reader. In Midnight's Children, it's Padma, and in Wait, it's his dead mom.
Even when the narrator isn't actually coming out and directly referencing the reader, their voice is, throughout the whole novel, distinctly talkative and very unliterature-like. The narrator feels kind of like a person or a friend rather than just a narrator. Through the narrator's unreliability and stream of consciousness, as well as erratic thought-like sentences, the narrator becomes a character separate from the character they are portraying themselves as in the book.
Postmodernism
began at the end,
and centers around post-World War II emotions and fears.
Draws attention to deeper, harder to explain truths.
Is unique in tone and structure, as is each individual narrator,
and most importantly, has no center.
So don't think too hard about it.
Or do, because it does actually have a deeper meaning that